Hey there, Goa fans. Mark, DJ Solitaire here with episode 23 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I take a track from the 90s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement and share some memories and observations about the music from my experience in Tokyo and London in the 90s and from my classical music training. And so today I thought would be the last in the 94-95 season. And then I remembered, of course, there's another one. And of course, there's going to be lots of them. But I think I'll do 24 as it stands for this season. And then we'll start moving on to tracks from the 95-96 season. And I'll bounce back and forth. There's always so many great tracks to do. But this one I referred to last episode because I was talking about a specific party in May 1995, where both the track last week and that I'm featuring this week were played. And the reason I wanted to feature the track that I'm presenting today is because there is some absolutely blinding film footage from one of those Odyssey parties when Jay played this set. And I mean, it's wild. And it just really gives you an impression of what the parties were like. And also how different the music and sound when you're listening at home, and then what happens on a big system and when everybody's there and raring to go. So the track today is Transparent Mind by Total Eclipse. Now, I've featured Total Eclipse before. We looked at aliens, and we also looked at film footage from the same party, in fact, when Jay was playing that track. And I just couldn't pass this up, just simply because I remember that day and that party really specifically, and being able to see this incredible video just brings back a lot of memories. And it's always hard actually with Total Eclipse because their music is so darn good that there's tons that I could feature other than this. I mean, there's Blade Runner, which I thought about. And in fact, it was 2 weeks after this party, towards the end of May 95, when I heard Serge DJ at a Tokyo Techno Tribe party, the first one of their parties that I went to. And I remember actually specifically Blade Runner. I remember that sort of squealing ambulance-like sound that really blew me away. But Transparent Mind is an interesting one. Now, this was written by Serge alone. Total Eclipse, with the three members of Stefan Holbeck, Loic van Cook, and really not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, Loic, and Serge Suk. They had an arrangement that they would often produce in solo or duo or trio combinations, and everybody had to vote and agree that this track would be released as Total Eclipse. And the second single on the Tip label was in fact by Total Eclipse. The first one was by the Infinity Project, which of course makes sense. And the second one, also in 1994, was Waiting for a New Life on one side and Transparent Mind and Bumble on, or if that's how you pronounce it, on the other side. And Transparent Mind and Waiting for a New Life were written by Serge alone. But again, this was a Total Eclipse production. And, it's interesting because when you listen to some of this music at home and looking back, given, all of the evolution that's taken place in production techniques and musical techniques, it can sound a bit basic. And sure, it doesn't sound basic when you listen on a big system. There is a lot that's going on, and really the impression can be very, very different. And with Total Eclipse, as I've named before, there was a whole variety of sounds that they had. They had a style. Well, I mean, they had not just one style. That's the whole thing. So they had very, streamlined, beautiful, ethereal morning music. They had this growling kind of nighttime stuff. They had just really a lot of different sounds, and some of it a bit more granular and a little bit rougher around the edges. But that's something that really pulls at the emotions, I think, in a particular way. And that's the case here. So I'll put this on now, of course, make some observations while it's playing, as I usually do. Then I'll feature just a couple of snippets of the video from when Jay played it at that May 13th. No, yeah, I think that's the date, May 13th, 1995, Odyssey party. And then I'll present the track on its own without my talking. So let's get started here with Transparent Mind by Total Eclipse. So just very simple repeated note, and then semitone up. And just a chicka chicka, and then the sample, which is always a
candor and paranoia. If your mind is open and transparent, then nobody has to be afraid of you. You don't have to be afraid of yourself.
Just notice how there's, a little bit of syncopation going on here, just a little bit. And the sound here is neat. And the bass is kind of rough, and this one's a little bit more polished, but it's really evocative. And this is a Total Eclipse kind of sound. And the intervals, again, we got major and minor going on. There's a semitone and a minor third that's going to be coming. Just punctuating that. Offbeat, and we hear this, almost like this chorus coming in. And I mean, this is where all heaven breaks loose, when this just starts to squeal into the foreground. This starts getting louder and louder. And you note this again, several things we've heard before. Goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, so it's call and answer. And it mimics the patterns of speech. It's actually, very much what was going on in the music back then. And here, there we have the interval semitone. And that is a minor third from the lower key. And it's really simple, right? Not simplistic. People can think that, but super effective. There's tons of angst that we hear. If you listen to some proto-Goa stuff, there's a lot of this kind of darker German, Belgian sort of like anguish kind of sound, and this is playing this up really well. But I just love there's this little one just bores through you. It's just like an earworm kind of riff. And the speed is interesting, it's 142, 143, which is a lot faster than some of the stuff that we've heard, and it doesn't sound that fast. And again, once you see the video, you'll see how this completely rips on the dance floor, though. And notice the pattern with the lower and upper percussion. thing again with these tracks, the way they pull back and then they bring something back, and the storyline is just amazing. And this breakdown here. And this build up here. It doesn't sound that fast here, and this just rips through the environment. I mean, it's just like this thunderbolt, this electricity that's just sort of completely zapping the whole space. Notice how that like chorus-like voice is just sort of in the background a bit there. We heard this before, but it sounds different somehow after that whole section that we've just been through, right? Like revisiting things in life, things have a different flavor when you come back to it later. Really simple pattern. And again, listening at home, it sounds much flatter than when you're hearing these big sounds and you're in the sound waves of these different tones shifting the vibes of the room. Hypnotic element of these riffs repeating over and over again. Something dropping out every now and again here. Now.
Candor and paranoia. If your mind is open and transparent, then nobody has to be afraid of you, and you don't have to be afraid of yourself.
As I've mentioned before, Stefan told me that they were always considering what words were being spoken, that they were meant to trigger some kind of association for anybody who was at one of these events, and to really open one's mind and hear, really being transparent and, not going into that paranoia, just like, what is it that you have to be afraid of? Really just having your mind be clear. Really brilliant. Masterpiece by Serge. Serge was, and he's phenomenal in the studio. Little fast forward detail here. Stefan told me that the track Particles, absolute killer, was done in 4 hours by Serge. So, that's what he could be like when he decided he was going to do something. Phenomenal musician. And again, simple, clear, and also powerful. So let's take a look at a couple of snippets from when Jay played this at that May 1995 Odyssey party. Now, previously, the Odyssey parties were pretty small. They were generally being held in the basement of a photo studio in a residential neighborhood in Tokyo. So only people who knew about it would go. They had to have the flyer because nobody's wandering around and seeing the club and then wandering in by mistake. So if you're going to that neighborhood, it was because you knew there was this event. But it was, much smaller dance floor. And so, the early parties I went to, there was like fewer than, sometimes there was even just like 20 people on the dance floor, and then we started building, maybe 50 or so. And then they did, I don't remember if they did an event or so before this at Spiral in Roppongi. which is a night district. But on this particular occasion, May 13, if memory serves correct, 1995, Mixmaster Morris was playing in the chill room. They always had a chill out room and the main dance floor. Morris, as it turns out, didn't play particularly chill music. It was a little bit more up and groovy. So, and then, everybody started following suit while Gio Macchio was there, sort of, with his amazing chill music, always still carrying the torch for beautiful down tempo. But the party was just massive, and there's probably about 700 people, I think. And so there were like a couple hundred people at least on the dance floor at the peak, at least. Might have been 300. It was packed. It was hot. It was wild. And there was somebody wandering around who was filming a bunch of people. And this was, with a fairly hefty camera and a portable light and interviewing people. And I've managed to get a copy of the videotape and have it transferred. I'm just going to show a couple of snippets for the purpose of historical interest. I think it's kind of fun to see what was going on here. So let's take a look at just a couple of snippets of when Jay played Transparent Mind. I mean, what an atmosphere. Really, really wild electric stuff. You notice how, again, Jay might have had this pitched up slightly, but he was, he never really pitched things up majorly. I was very mindful of that because the sound would, go off if you sort of ramped up the speed too much. You're playing off vinyl. And like, what an electric atmosphere. I mean, you can just see how many people are there at just that electro thunderbolt kind of, truly electric atmosphere through this music. And it just feels like it's just channeling through the whole room and through each person that's in there. Just absolutely blinding. So that's pretty much the reason why, and there's tons of Total Eclipse tracks that I could feature, but I just thought, let's take a look at this one. Beautiful one. And again, one that we can recognize has incredible power on the dance floor. Again, one of the wonderful things about Total Eclipse was their live sets. I had an opportunity to attend many of them in the 90s in Japan and elsewhere. And they were just, they would always adjust the instrumentation so the synths had a different sound, and there were some, different elements in there. One of them, a different mix of this one came out, as well as of several tracks in this Dat Universe release. 3 CDs of Total Eclipse, along with some of their earlier productions and some rarer items. But I just they hold a very special place in my heart, just from having known them, but well before that, from having heard them several times and just really been captured, and moved by the range of music that they produced. So there we have it. Episode 23. We'll do one more next week and semi wrap up the 94 and 95 season before starting to move on to some of the tracks that I really remember that started more from September 95 through to the next summer. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Mark, DJ Solitaire here, and I'll leave you now with Transparent Mind by Total Eclipse.
Candor and paranoia. If your mind is open and transparent, then nobody has to be afraid of you, and you don't have to be afraid of yourself. and it's paranoia. If your mind is open and transparent, then nobody has to be afraid of you, and you don't have to be afraid of yourself.